Okay, I kind of feel like we should do a little pre-roll of like what the we just talked about to put at the beginning of the episode.
I like it.
Yeah, that would make sense.
You mean that we should tell people that like we're going to talk about everything except the Wheel of Time as we talk about the Wheel of Time?
We'd like to introduce all of you to this is the perfect example of a bait and switch.
No, what it is, do you all want to know where the Wheel of Tangents actually came from? It's from conversations like this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, welcome everybody, I guess.
This is really what goes on in our heads.
So you would think that after like a summer off, we did a little hiatus. It was nice, very relaxing for me. But, we want to get back to it and record content for the people because we are nothing if not slaves to their passions. Mm-hmm. And we are their passions.
We are their passions.
That's what my tattoo says.
You would think that we would do like a kind of grand reopening. Hey, we're going to like really hit the ground running with something well prepared, well planned.
Why would we ever do anything that wasn't in our strengths?
If you thought that,
you don't know us very well.
What you are about to listen to is a discussion ostensibly about the Wheel of Time. And I should say, for those who have not read The Wheel of Time in its entirety, there are some spoilers. Honestly, I wouldn't be that worried about it without the context involved. I think the biggest spoiler is what happens in the last like 10 pages.
Yeah, and we didn't talk about that at all.
We didn't talk about that at all. Anyway, so we talk about the Wheel of Time, but really we talk about it in relation to literally every other nerd thing ever.
That was a lot of fun.
It's the connecting thread, but it's tied very loosely. Very, very loosely.
It's kind of how we do everything, though. Yeah.
So, welcome back to the Legendarium, everybody. And if you've read The Wheel of Time, great. If you haven't, then just, you know what?
Hang on for the ride.
Mow your lawn and enjoy some noise in your ears for a little while. All right, here we go. All right, so Todd, you just finished The Wheel of Time, and we should warn everybody, I suppose, that you have finished The Wheel of Time, so we will be discussing it in its entirety.
Oh, yeah. And spoilers all over the place.
And, this is one of those things where if you are planning imminently to read The Wheel of Time, then yes, spoilers, beware, all that stuff. If you're not, if it's something where you're like, maybe someday in the future, you still might get a kick out of this conversation because you will have no context for what we're talking about.
None.
And so
you will feel like I did for the last 3 years whenever we would get together and somebody would say, oh, it's just like the Wheel of Time when blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
I believe you.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so if we do it, if we discuss anything that is really genuinely spoilery, like what happens to the main character at the very end of the story, we'll let you know.
Yeah.
But otherwise, alert, if I say that, hey, I'm in book 4 right now, and I want to take a shotgun into Tel Iran and find Faile in her sleep, you don't know what I'm talking about.
No. If you haven't read the books, and if you have read the books, if you are familiar, probably 90% of the people would say, okay, can I come along? Can I provide you the ammunition?
Well, okay, so this is something that surprised me as we were having our little discussions on Patreon. When I think you were done with book 4, 5, 6, somewhere around there.
It was around somewhere.
It was around where I am. And I said, how do you feel about Faile? And you went, oh, yeah, I like her fine. And it was one of those moments where I felt like an English teacher who immediately gave your paper an F because I knew you hadn't read the assignment.
hadn't had the experience you had. And we determined that part of that was because Kate Redding reading anything is going to make it way better than
little more
reading
charming.
it on your own.
That's possible.
Yeah, I really think, I continue to think that my experience with Faile has more to do with the portrayal that Kate Redding did than it does with the actual words that were being read.
So here's my question. And
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan, you can jump in there too. In The Shadow Rising, this is book 4, where I'm at, the Faile rarely, if ever, actually gets a point of view.
Yeah.
It's all from Perrin's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And so we get Michael Kramer's performance. And I am listening this time around. I'm listening to this performance. So I wonder if that has anything to do with it, where Michael Kramer's performance, you know, male perspective, I don't, you know, maybe it's somewhat less sympathetic to her character. I'm not sure.
I think that also could lend to the other side, because you're usually viewing it from Perrin's frustrations of what she's doing, or seeing it with that extra set of audience, more omnipotent eyes or omniscient eyes, whatever. I don't know. There, where you can see from his perspective what he's trying to do and why it's frustrating to him. And so you're mired more in that side of things, versus if there was more POV from her side of things, you might have a better understanding and be more forgiving of it. Not necessarily appreciate it or like it better, but you'd be more understanding of it, possibly. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been a hot minute. I remember that is the relationship that I am the least fond of. No, second least fond of.
After
Matt and the daughter of the night.
Oh, yeah.
I am not a big fan of that relationship. myself.
Okay, before we move on, first of all, we need to acknowledge this is how good we are at these podcasts, how well practiced we are after some time off. That we're like, hey, let's talk about the Wheel of Time. You know what I hate? Faile. Like, let's dig into
Straight in.
Faile. Anyway, so let's dig into Faile. And I
Why
want to
should
say,
it be any different than normal?
I was the same way, where when I started this reread, a few months ago, I've been going very slowly through these, but I remembered, I do not like Faile. That is like that emotion, that feeling is set in stone. But I didn't remember the specifics. I couldn't have told you, well, it's because she said this or she did this or whatever. All I remembered was this kind of nebulous feeling of, no, we don't like Faile. She's mean or something, whatever. Now that I'm wrapping up book 4, holy smokes, did I underestimate how awful this person is. And there will be people out there who try to excuse her because she's very young. Or, hey, that's just her, that's the culture that she comes from. Well, then your culture sucks, right? And it made you suck. She is manipulative.
Yes.
She is angry.
Yes.
She...
Spoiled, entitled.
Yep. She actually goes out of her way to manipulate not just Perrin, who she loves. She manipulates Perrin's friend, Loyal, against him. She extracts, under false pretenses, extracts an oath from Loyal to bind him to her, setting him at odds with his friend Perrin, so that she can play this game of like trying to force him into, it's like asking if he can come along on her adventure instead of the other way around. And he's like, I'm trying to go save my family and my neighbors and all of my friends back at home, where the Trollocs and White Cloaks and, and flying monkeys, oh my.
Yeah.
They're all coming to kill everybody I've ever loved. And you're screwing around playing games with no regard for what I'm actually going through. I hate that woman so much. So anyway, okay. So anyway, Daughter of the Nine Moons, unless we want to say anything else about Faile. I'm making a YouTube video about this. I'm listing her in
her
my
faults.
No, I'm
Her
doing
characteristics.
three characters who are even more evil than you remember from fantasy literature.
Wow.
And
Okay.
she's
And
one of
Faile is one of them.
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
That's gonna get some comments and responses.
Yeah. I'm glad you're not picking anything, that's going to stir people up at all. Yeah.
I would never.
No.
YouTube
I'm so proud of you.
YouTube is for very calm, even-keeled takes. It's not for ruffling feathers.
Okay.
So anyway,
Good to know.
Can we get to Todd? Because I'm sorry, I've stolen this whole conversation. Todd, you finished the book.
I finished it. I finished all of the books, including the one chapter that was longer than 3 of the other books that I've read in the consequence of the last year. Yeah, I finished it. It was, and
Okay.
I feel like I have accomplished something with my life. I mean, getting a doctorate, yeah, okay. Finishing the Wheel of Time, holy, sorry,
it's a whole
holy
thing.
crap. Yeah, that's a sorry. I
Did
need
you
to stop swearing. one of these
Did you?
days.
Okay, it's Saturday night as
It's
we're
Saturday
recording this because we know how to party. When did you finish it?
I finished it last Friday.
So like 8 days ago.
Yeah,
Okay, so has the itch set in yet?
to go back and reread everything.
Mm-hmm.
Not completely, but there are pieces that I'm like, wait a minute. I think I need to go back and check this out again, because as I'm thinking about some of the pieces during the middle of the last battle, some of the connections. There was a moment when we have a changing in the sounder of the horn, and I want to go back and go, wait, what? So why didn't anybody pick up on that? Do we need to look? Yeah, I want to look at some of that stuff. So it's starting to, but I have to be honest. I have a list,
Oh yeah.
and so I'm like, okay, yeah, I think I want to do that, but I think I want to go through. I now understand why Stephanie was like, I'm going to put this on like 4 times speed and go through.
She finishes the series in like a week and a half.
You know what?
Yeah.
And can I just butt in here and say, sorry, Stephanie, no, no. I'm forgiving up to a point of that,
Yeah.
but the line she crossed that line about 2 to 2.5x ago, right? So no, Stephanie.
Stephanie. But I get it, because there are as I'm thinking about the way that things are articulated, and there are pieces that I want to go back and I want to trace them down again.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's starting to.
Yeah, Ryan, you've read it twice, right?
Yeah. I've read the whole series twice at least.
Okay.
And I remember finishing the first time, and I had a pretty decent chunk of time before I had the itch to reread in there. But it did come
Do you have
back.
a sense? Was it like weeks, months?
Easily months before that. Partially because I had so many other things that I was moving into to read,
Yeah.
covering things like that.
You had other things to fill that WoT-shaped void in your life.
Yes. So I think if I didn't have those things, it probably would have set in earlier. But every now and then, like, I still get the itch to reread it. And I'm going to say something that some people aren't going to like here.
Cut his mic.
Actually, watching the series that's been put on Prime, whatever it is, actually, I watched that and go, I kind of want to get back in and reread the books.
Okay.
It does make me want to reread the books in there. I'm not speaking at all to quality and matchup or anything like that, but it does drive me to the books sometimes.
I'll buy that.
I wonder about that, because it drives you toward a reread, which I think is totally fair. It did the same for me. I think I got kind of fed up around halfway through season 2, going, oh my gosh, okay, no, I just need to read the books. I love these books, and this is making me want to read the books.
Yep.
But that's a little bit different than when I saw The Lord of the Rings for the first time and was like, I gotta read that.
Yeah.
That's
approach.
a little bit different. How many people is the show driving to the books for the first time? And I'm curious. I have no idea what the answer to that is.
I think that'd be an interesting conversation, and I think that the other side of that conversation is, okay, because I had read the first 2 books, I think, by the time I watched the first season of The Wheel of Time. And I was like, oh, okay. I can see where they've moved. I can see where they've done some things a little different, but I get it. I'm along for this ride.
Yeah.
And then season 2 started, and I'm like, nope, I have to stop watching this, because it seems like it is just different. Different enough that it's interfering with what I'm trying to absorb and everything else that's going on. And so I'd be curious to find out how many people, because there's always this question with adaptations. Did you like the book or did you like the movie? Which one, and
Which one draws you more?
People tend to fall on one side or the other, unless, of course, you're doing George Lucas, and we'll talk about that later. But I think there are probably people for whom the books are not as satisfying after seeing the series on Amazon because they don't match.
There's an argument to be made for like a home-based setup, but I don't know. I cannot imagine a lot of people where that is the case, where it's, oh, this series was so good and the books just aren't living up to that. I think it would be people realizing like, okay, these are different, and there's a lot more to immerse myself in here. I don't see a lot of people. I'm sure because there's people who fall into every category of everything.
Yeah, I'd be curious.
But I don't know. I have been feeling I'm really throwing us into a tangent since we moved into adaptations or whatever.
No, that's fine.
But that's actually, I just finished this season of Rings of Power.
Did that finish up?
Yeah, the last episode of this season is
I got
out.
halfway through. I got to Tom Bombadil and went, nope, hard fucking nope.
So my experience with this, because I have read the Silmarillion, I have a passing knowledge of some of the appendices and some of the things that are in there, but not a deep knowledge of it. And I looked at this and I watched this and I have immensely enjoyed season 2. Very much more so than I enjoyed the first season, which I did, but I had some issues with it. And it has driven me to be more inclined to go back into the deeper Tolkien lore and be like, okay, what is it really? I know this isn't accurate. What is it really?
Yeah.
But it's not a hate drive. It's like, oh, this is garbage, so I'm going to go in there.
Right.
I'm enjoying my time in this world, in this experience. I'd like to know what the rest of it actually is.
That's good.
And for everyone who gets upset about the adaptations, like there are people like me out there who are getting more excited about going to that because of that.
I know with the Rings of Power specifically, gosh, I'm going to have to relabel the title of this episode. But
a touch of WoT, and then we go.
Touch her what?
That's okay. We did that last episode, and we will not be doing that again.
With the Rings of Power specifically, yes, it drives me crazy. Season 1 with the lightning Silmaril tree and whatnot, I'm screaming and almost throwing things at my TV. And okay, so that's my experience. But I'm also, I hope, mature enough to give myself a little bit of remove and say, right, because I'm in this stuff deep, right? This is not just, it's not just something that I know. It's something that's really important to me and that I know better than almost anybody that I know in real life.
And adaptations are not made for you.
Right, exactly.
Adaptations are made for an entirely different audience and from an entirely different perspective.
That being said, let's bring it back to the Wheel of Time, because if we want to talk about the Wheel of Time adaptation, I have to be honest, there are things about it, like the Battle of Falme at the end of season 2 of the Wheel of Time, where they make changes to how Aes Sedai work, how the power works, how Rand is revealed. And I kind of get, you're trying to compress certain things, from books 2 and 3 together, okay, to a certain extent. But I'm sitting here watching that going, why didn't you do what the book said right there? You're not compressing there. You're making changes that don't make any story sense to me, and that kind of destroy the internal logic of your own show and how the magic is supposed to work and the world building is supposed to work. And so, I guess you want to make allowances and not get too wrapped up in, hey, this is something I love, so you have to do it the way I want. That's not necessarily what I'm thinking, but it's like, Robert Jordan spent a lot of time to get this story to work. It's not easy to write a novel, let alone get a story to work over 15 of the damn things. And so why not use his work a little bit more than you are?
Yeah, I think the question really then becomes one that needs to be directed to the people that are in the room, the people that are making those choices. Are they making those choices because they wanted to explore something, because they think it will be better for the way that they're trying to tell, that they're going to tell the story in the future, because they've got an idea of how they need to have things work together? One of the things that, and maybe this is a little bit irrelevant, but I'm reminded of watching all of Stargate SG-1,
Sure.
which I have done 4 times, I think.
Wow, nice.
I absolutely adore the series. I think it's a blast. It's one of those things that I put on and I just let it play in the background, and when I know it's getting close to a joke, I slow down and I really enjoy the joke, and then I let it play, which drives my wife and other people crazy. But there are things in that series that are set up early that they have to tweak about midway through. And I know those moments where they tweak things and they make adjustments, and and the reason that they did is because they realized, oh, we've got a different story arc that we need to tell, and we have to change something that we've already got in place. They've also got things that they set really early that it's 7 seasons before it pays off.
Right.
But it pays off because of the way they built it. So I'm wondering, in the writer's room, in the production meetings, when they're talking with people, maybe there's somebody somewhere in that group that's saying, I really want to do this because it works with some other things that I want to do later on.
Right.
And so I get that. Does it make me frustrated? No more so than any other adaptation that I've ever seen.
Fair.
From a book to a movie. But it's one of those pieces that I, with the exception of First Night.
Oh, you had to bring it up. Wow.
That movie, when my wife and I rented it.
In 1997?
In 1997, 98, whatever it was. And, you get to you're reading the first thing and it says, and after all, Lancelot was always good with a sword. And I went, I'm done. I turned it off and I walked away, and my wife was like, oh, give it a chance. Give it a chance. And I'm like, no. If they'd have come up with any other group of names, I would have been fine. But as soon as they use Arthur, Guinevere, and Lancelot, and you depart from the source material that drastically, I'm done. I walk away.
Okay, so here's where I part from you, because that was just a bad movie.
It was a bad movie.
King Arthur,
for so many reasons.
King Arthur is a different beast entirely because there is no source material. They weren't adapting a specific version or something. They were just trying to make up their own crap as they went along.
Exactly. And they figured, but that's if we throw in these names, we'll be just fine. People will show up. They'll come out because they're loving this. No.
They weren't coming out for Lancelot and Arthur. They were coming out for
Richard
Gere and
whatever her name was.
Yeah. Who did play?
I can't remember. But the point is that if you're gonna do an adaptation, be reasonably faithful. Make allowances, make changes, make adjustments. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
But I'm at a point now in my life, in the reading that I do, that I don't expect them to be perfect.
Yeah.
But I also can't. I struggle to overlap them if they're too different. And so that was why when I walked away from season 2 of Wheel of Time, because I needed to get through the entire story. I'm going to go back and watch it now.
Yeah.
And see what I think. But I did the same thing with The Expanse. We worked all the way through the novels. So sorry, Stephanie. And
done with this woman.
Done with this. But I went back and I watched the shows, and I was like, okay, these are telling the same story-ish, but they're making adjustments. I get it. I'm fine. As long as I'm not doing them simultaneously, I'm okay with it. But I recognize that they're not necessarily.
I want to run something by you here. Using 2 examples, one would be Disney Star Wars, the other would be Lost.
Never saw Lost.
Do you know what? A bunch of people listening already know what it's going to be.
Okay.
So, adapt away. I understand you're going to need to make changes. You're going to compress, you're going to expand, you're going to fit it to the screen. This format may be different from. What is it? Has been modified from its original format.
Yeah.
Fine. Have a plan, please. For the love of God, have a plan.
I agree.
And
I have heard that about Lost.
So Lost, I bring up Lost because a friend of mine just finished the original Mistborn trilogy, and he got to the end of it and went, "This is Lost." It bears some striking resemblances. Anyway, we'll leave it there. But famously, the writers of Lost did not have a plan. They had a plan through the first season or two, and then they're like, we don't know what's going to happen. And then the show became a huge success, and they're like, we've got material for 3 seasons. And ABC goes, 6, please.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, good Lord, what do we do? And so they're scrambling to figure out how to not just put a puzzle together, but how to draw the picture and cut it with the jigsaw, and then
while it's already been
right,
started
exactly.
to cut. Yeah.
So there's that same thing with Disney Star Wars, where I am not here to say that Disney Star Wars is uniformly crap. Okay,
because I'm in the room.
No, because there are things that exist, like The Force Awakens, for all of its derivativeness, for all of its faults. Really, it's a fun movie.
Sure.
I really like The Force Awakens, and/or extraordinary television.
Yeah.
Even if there's a little filler in there, fine, but really, really good TV. The first season of Mandalorian, chef's kiss, great stuff. So I'm not saying that like they can't do anything right, but it's so clear 10 years on that they had no idea what they were doing. They
Correct.
had no plan.
Yeah. Correct.
And so when it comes to an adaptation like The Wheel of Time, or like The Rings of Power, I can forgive a lot, but it kind of feels like you don't know where you want to end up with this.
And
Or
maybe
you know what the actual end point is, but you haven't mapped out your markers to get there. But maybe I'm
I will disagree on one element of that. It's
Okay.
90% agreement, 10% this. I think they know, like you said, they know exactly where it's going, and I think they know the path they're going to take to get there. But I think my feeling is that we want to make it a path that people don't know they're going to go on. So they're trying to specifically adjust make it a path less traveled to get there.
So you think they're like playing to the fans in a different way than we'd expect?
They're trying to make it an experience so that the fans, we want fans of the book to come in and watch this and not know exactly what's going to happen. Know a little bit, but not exactly what's going to happen. And so we're going to, instead of taking the linear path of the storyline as it's going on, we will have our normal compression that we have to do. We're going to restructure a few things, change some character things. We'll do all that. But then we're going to go and we're going to take an entirely different route, and we're going to seed it along the way. So when we get to the end, everyone will see, oh, this is what we were aiming to do the whole time. I get it now, and they will be less mad at us for all the changes we made.
Yeah.
I will tell you.
Maybe.
I feel like that's the case, and I will say, I'm going to give one prediction here. It's a stupid prediction, and I will eat my words later on. The way they ended season 2 with the reveal
of
Wheel of Time.
Okay.
The way they did that told me that they are going to try and finish this series that Rand is not the dragon this whole group is the dragon of this generation.
Okay. All right.
I could see that.
That is a bold prediction, Cotton. And if you're right, there are going to be some studios that'll get burned to the ground.
I think he will still be labeled as the Dragon Reborn, but it's literally put all of them under the banner.
But the real Dragon Reborn was the friends we met along the way.
It's the Tavir. It's the combination of the 3 of them. They are
not even that. It's Egwene.
Well,
because they are literally all underneath the banner when it's revealed.
That's true.
Spoilers for season 2. They are literally all underneath the banner. They bring everything there, and I'm like, you are literally trying to make this is a seed right here to say, look at the end when we have to do the final battle sequences.
Yeah.
And it's literally all of these people are the dragon.
Okay.
For this turn of the wheel.
Following that thought thread through. Okay, let's just take that as a given that that's where they're going. First of all, that would be crazy bold.
Mm-hmm.
It would also just be crazy. This is one of the things that does bother me about adaptations, where you have source material and you have a room of writers that look at the source material and say, as we talked about kind of ad nauseum when the first 3 episodes of season 1 dropped, they looked at the source material and went, no, not good enough.
Well,
and that's, to me, that's a problem. When you take the entire conceptual framework of the Wheel of Time and say, no, we're going to throw that out the window. Now anybody of either sex could be the dragon
reborn.
And where it's like, you love it or hate it. I'm not saying that you have to like this about the Wheel of Time, but it's integral to the Wheel of Time that the magic is separated, between men and women. So anyway, so Ryan, if your prediction holds, that would be, I think, disastrous, but very possibly in keeping.
And it's also possible that the way that they're looking at it is not to make that insinuation that they are all combined, like Captain Planet, but that they all are serving very specific requirements that in the past were all served by one. I'm one of the things that I found myself thinking about as I was going through the last battle and reading some of the pieces that are and the things that happen after the last battle is the reference that they make. There were two things that kept being referred to. One was the tug of Rand, the pull of Rand, to make sure that people were there for him when he needed them, when he was in the bore. And okay, great. I can understand that they needed to be there as protection, as defense, as all of these kinds of things to allow him the space and the time to do what he needs to do. The other thing that I found very interesting was this idea that the difference between the way that Lews Therin had done it the first time, where he talks about, I did it wrong because I tried to do it this way. You need to do it better this time. We need to do it better this time. And that frees Rand as he's looking at the process to allow individuals to play a role that they didn't play in the past. The moment where he is having the conversation with the Dark One and he says, no, I failed all these people. And then Egwene comes into his head and says, you didn't fail us. Why do you have to protect everybody? We can fight too. Let us have these sacrifices. Let us do these things. And so I wonder if that's part of what they're looking at. They wanted to explore that concept. They wanted to expand on that idea. I can see that. And when I was reading, like I said, when I was doing my reading, I was like, oh, okay, maybe that's what Lews Therin was referencing when he was saying to Rand, we need to do better. We need to do better.
Yeah.
This time around.
I like that.
I found that was a, I'm sure somewhere out there's somebody that's going to be pulling their hair out and they're saying, you silly, stupid man, you just don't understand the material well enough. And that's probably true. But that was something that I noticed and I said, oh, I like that. And if that was Robert Jordan's take, if that was Brandon Sanderson's take, if that's just me reading between the lines and making some connections, I don't know, but I liked it.
I'm always appreciative of having multiple things that have consequence inside of especially a final battle storyline thing. Everyone has to serve their purpose and fall in place versus when you have to have everything sits on the shoulders of one person. I mean, since we're not actually staying inside of any one concept, I'm going to bring in Justice League for a minute here.
Yes. Okay. You know what? How many different things can we pull in figure out how to talk about the Wheel of Time?
We're talking Zack Snyder's Justice League or the animated Justice League?
No,
just want to be clear.
I'm talking the live action stuff, and between the Zack Snyder and the
Zack Snyder
Joss
cut
Whedon,
and the
Joss Whedon.
and the Joss Whedon cut.
we do not speak his name.
He who will not be named.
Yeah.
It is immensely funny we watched that. I think I took my wife and we saw it when the Whedon version in theaters, and it has always been the case with those movies specifically that she's like, nothing in the movie matters except getting Superman there.
Correct.
It's the only thing that ever matters in there.
Correct.
So to have stories like Wheel of Time where your hero, like, if he's not there, everything falls apart. But if all of the other elements aren't in place,
it still falls apart.
It falls apart as well.
Yes.
I think I appreciate that you can have a character of that grandiose nature, but there has to be elements there. My favorite sequences about Wheel of Time's final battle things is realizing like that there is protection for Rand in Teleron Riod. There's protection for Rand literally in the board. There's protection. There's the battles going on outside. That it is happening literally in every aspect and every dimension of the story. There are things happening in the final battle. It is that immersive.
Yes.
It's so impressive.
And that,
it's
that
great
everyone
that-
has a part to play, and if their part is not played, the whole thing
will
could
fail.
be yep.
And we've had a whole series where that idea has been seeded.
Yeah.
Because, the whole concept of the Wheel of Time is, in a previous age, the dragon won, kinda, but didn't really win very well or very thoroughly, right? So now we got to do it better, as you say, Ryan. And even within just the story that we have here with Rand, like, he screws up, he gets... What's in the box? Rand is in the box, right? Like, he gets messed up several times throughout the series. And does he have plot armor? Are you ever really terrified that he's not going to make it to the last battle? No, not necessarily, but you keep being given these prophecies and goals of the characters, and then things go haywire. Things don't go the way they expect. And so while you're not necessarily afraid that he's going to die and not make it to book 14, you're still...
What would they go through to get there?
Yeah, the trope seems to be one of every time you try to ensure that a prophecy works out the way you want, you wind up screwing it up worse. Whereas if you just sit back and let the prophecy unfold, watch it as it unfolds, then you get a different kind of experience. For me, that's a trope of fantasy literature when you have some kind of a prophecy that the more you try to mess with it, the more you're going to frustrate yourself and make it more difficult for things to work out, but they're still going to work out.
Okay.
And not because of you. Because in spite of you.
Todd?
Yeah.
Quickfire. You ready?
I'm ready.
I am not. I haven't prepared for this
I'm sure
one
you
tiny
haven't.
little bit.
In fact, I'm looking at you right now, and I'm thinking to myself, if I give him about another 7 seconds, then he's going to come up with some good ones.
Oh, I thought
so
you were
there
gonna
we
say-
go. We're just filibustering for you to make sure you come up with some
I thought
good
you were
ones.
going to say...
He'll take another drink?
Yeah,
No,
he'll
that's
take
not
another
what I was
drink.
going to go with.
I'm a beer and a half in. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Quickfire. So I want no explanation here.
Sure.
Okay. Favorite character.
Matt.
Okay. Scene that will stick in your head a decade from now.
Oliver, right before he blows the horn.
We've got tears, ladies and gentlemen. Tears.
It took almost all of the last 6 books to get there. But yeah.
Okay.
And whoever had, what are we in, 45 minutes? I don't know.
Yeah.
Whoever had that, they win.
Okay. Character who you would most like to see buried at sea.
Oh,
Ignominiously.
the red sister that...
Elida Doavrinia Royhan.
Yes. Get her...
Yeah.
So many ways. After she's been hung, drawn, and quartered, and disemboweled, and then bury at sea. No, burn, then spread the ashes in 7 different seas. Oh, man.
She did a good job as being a villain, apparently.
I
Yeah.
guess
Well
so.
written, well written. Even more than Mogadine.
I see her as the Dolores Umbridge of the series. Where,
Okay.
like, is she a dark friend? No, she's not a dark friend, but she
boy,
might
is
as
she
well
awful.
be. Yeah. Okay. So, Ryan,
Which
do you-
I love so much that they're turning that into a theme park thing.
what?
Are you familiar with Epic World at all?
No.
So Universal is building a giant 5 park. It opens next year.
Oh,
5
do you
people's-
like get to murder Dolores Umbridge?
The Harry Potter World section that they're building there is based around the trial of Dolores Umbridge.
No kidding.
That is the storyline there. So your rides, everything is built around this element of her standing on trial for what she did.
Oh my
in her
goodness.
hilarious.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Ryan, do you have any quick fire questions? I can come up with a few others, but I
I
want
was,
to
like,
make.
yeah, I was thinking about that a little while back. I'm like, I've got a few for there, but a few for Todd. But you covered a couple of those. I want to know. Like he already asked the scene that's going to stick with you 10 years later, but I want to know the moments that you like 2 or 3 of the moments where you just went, "Oh, that is the coolest thing," and that just it stuck with you.
Kneel or you will be knelt.
Okay.
That's one that's going to stay with me forever. The scene where Rand figures out what he's been doing wrong
Mm-hmm.
and
Comes down to the apple orchard.
comes down into the apple orchard, and the guy's like, yeah,
Oh,
well, I
man.
don't have any apples to give you. And he's like, I think you will. And all of a sudden, things start working.
Yeah.
That one's going to be fun. And
I believe that's the Wheel of Time version of what we call self-actualization.
there you go.
Mhm.
There you go. I'll take that. And perhaps I think this is more of a the culmination of Egwene's imprisonment in the tower when she becomes the battle queen herself against the Shan-Chan,
Yeah.
and makes it very clear to all of them that she was right and she is the Amerlin.
I understand that not everybody agrees with me about Egwene, and I understand why. And I don't begrudge anybody their opinion about Egwene. I love Egwene so much.
I know.
And that's been something I've been paying attention to on this reread is, kind of like the Faile question.
Yeah.
I remember how I felt, but I'm not sure I remember exactly why and whatnot. And Egwene is a horribly flawed person. Like I don't love her as a character because she's like
She's
the
not a paragon
of virtue,
Yeah.
right? But for other virtues that she has, and oh my gosh, Egwene through this whole series, by the time you get to the end of it, what a character. I love her.
I find that one of the things that I found was that I was more I understood that more after Egwene and Swan are together. Before they start their relationship, I didn't really have the same feeling that or the same sense of Egwene's pivotal nature and the power that she has as a character until she starts working with the Wise Ones and she has her interactions with Swan, and then I'm starting to say, okay, it's this growth period that makes her into that character that is so compelling.
Okay. In this order, least favorite book of the series, favorite book of the series.
Oh, least favorite would probably be, and I don't remember the name.
It's okay, just give me a number.
I think it was like 11.
10. Crossroads.
10 or
Twilight.
11. Yeah, Crossroads. Yeah,
It wasn't 11, I guarantee it.
yeah.
I
It
promise
was.
wasn't
It was
11.
before. Yeah, it was before we got into before things. It was when things were confused, and I was just like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
When we revisit the same thing that happened in the book before, but from everybody else in the world.
Yeah, I was like, why? Why do we care? Let's just get everybody. Can you give me a montage scene? And kind of we do that in the final battle. And honestly, memory of light.
Really? Now, do you feel like
really-
that's recency bias, or was it that good?
There's a potential that some of it is recency bias, but because there were partly because of the scene with Oliver.
Sure.
And maybe, what was the one right before Memory of Light?
Tower.
No, Towers is yeah.
Towers
Gathering Storm is 12.
Gathering
Towers
Storm-
of Midnight is 13.
Towers of Midnight might be close between those two.
Yeah.
Again, because Matt is the character that it for me became my favorite character, and those two books feature some things about Matt that I just really grew to appreciate and enjoy.
We know we've spoiled things a lot, but Matt is probably my favorite character in the series. If he's not, he's definitely like 2 or 3 up there.
Yeah.
But in that, because I think that's the book where they realize that
Noel.
no, Grendel, remember, has poisoned all of their generals. Has
Yes.
taken over
In Memory of Light. Yes.
like that setup, like, and he has to basically take control of the whole army of all.
And he has to do it in a way that he's going to put everybody where they need to be without telling them why,
Yeah,
so that nobody can be compromised. That was so much fun. When he's like, I'm going to tell her to do this. She's going to bloody hate it, but I'm going to tell her to do it. And then, Grady sitting there and saying, okay, I have to add one more scene that's going to stay with me forever. The scene when Grady sees all of the denizens of the village.
The time reset. Village?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he sees them all come out, and he's like, "They're the same people. How are they the same people? I saw them." Hinderstap.
Hey,
Couldn't remember the name of the
Way
town.
to dig
Yeah.
It's the beer that does that for you. Yeah, that was
Hinder's tap tap
It was
tap.
it was at the bottom of my glass.
that's a scene that will stick with me from when. And Grady's like, "I don't know, I guess this seems like a right time to blow the dam." And
It's such a weird sequence inside of the series because it does not fit with anything else in the way the series is
Are you
run.
talking about Hinderstaff
Hinderstaff
or the
specifically.
later?
Yeah.
No, specifically, it is such a weird curve in there because we've done with a lot of different things, but that is like the first like horror section that we go into, and it's so good.
First instance, as I understand it, I'm not an expert on this. We could call Drew over at Inking Out Loud or whatever, but my understanding is Brandon worked very assiduously to stay close to Robert Jordan's notes.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that Brandon didn't get to leave his mark. And Hinderstaff was his first, like, hey,
experimentation on
I'm
that.
leaving my mark. This
Okay.
is my thing. That was nowhere in the notes. That was wholly Brandon.
And it was well done.
And I really liked it. Speaking of which, like, maybe we should just take 2 or 3 minutes and say, was it perfect? Was it a perfect, seamless transition from Robert Jordan to Brandon Sanderson? No, of course not. That would be impossible. But Brandon did such a good job. And when you get to the last battle and what you guys are talking about with the generals and Matt's role and all of that, you see Brandon he was coming into his finest hour after that original Mistborn trilogy, and how he was able to construct a story and lay the breadcrumbs, and then he's got the conspiracy theory wall. It's all connected, right?
Yeah.
He's pulling all the strings together and creating this picture. So when you finish A Hero of Ages, and you're just like, holy, what did I just finish, right? And then you see that Brandon at work in A Memory of Light, and go, yeah, that was the right guy for the job.
Yep. Yeah, he definitely was both aware of what needed to happen and comfortable in his own skin enough to make it work without feeling like it was, I'm trying to be like Robert Jordan. No,
I'm trying to be.
Stop it. But he did it.
That was
he did
a
it on
joke
his
for
own.
about 1% of our audience.
Maybe.
Is Grady the one who does special things with the portals?
No, that's Andril.
Andril.
I know a lot of people don't like Andril, but I love that part of the book.
I'll tell you.
I love that's his storyline, and I know that was another one of those Brandon, like, this is my character, I'm going to insert in here, I'm going to do that, and people were bothered by that. But the things he did with the magic system using that character, I thoroughly enjoyed.
It was very obvious to me that Brandon's stamp on the magic system was showing up in a lot of different places. When Swan says it doesn't take very much of the power to cut off the blood flow to somebody's brain.
Yep.
I know that's not how I'm supposed to use the power, but it certainly was effective. I'm like, I've seen this kind of
How do I mess
working
with
with
this
the
magic?
power that when they I remember very specifically the first time that we see Andrel and he's using gateways to make perfect cuts in leather and do, very tiny gateways to do all of these, and I'm like,
So,
I really
okay.
like this.
We were talking before we turned the mics on about British panel comedy shows.
Yes,
You don't know where I'm going yet, but some
I
might.
don't, but
There's a show that a lot of people are getting more and more obsessed with these days. It's called Taskmaster.
okay.
Random comedians, British comedians get together and do ridiculous tasks. They're given a task on a sheet of paper, and wear as many belts as possible. You have 10 minutes. Your time starts now. That sort of thing, right?
Okay.
And so they'll get these weird, off-the-wall tasks. And the whole point of the show is it's an exercise in pedantry. How closely can you read this? And how laterally can you think about the task you've been given?
Okay.
Brandon would kill on that show.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea was Robert Jordan had created this world. And I don't get me wrong, I am not glad that Robert Jordan died before his time. Like, that's a tragic event. But how lucky that we had somebody step into that role to finish the series who is so good at lateral thinking, who you can give him the task card that says, here's how the magic system works. And his brain, instead of looking at it straight on, he tilts the paper to the side and says, oh, I wonder what I can do with that.
Tom
Right?
Maryland.
Maryland?
Identifying
Maryland, as in the state.
Maryland, sorry. Again, I listened to it. I didn't read it. His identification of sisters that were of Aes Sedai that were coming up trying to impersonate other Aes Sedai. When he sees the one that is Catswain and walking up, and then he throws a knife, kills her. And is like, yeah, it wasn't Catswain. Melts away, and he's like, let me drag it over and throw it with the other 5 bodies that are over here. Because he's like, don't they understand? It's not just the face. It's the voice. It's the walk. It's all these things. It's like, we know that after he says it.
If this were a different show, I would make you stand up right now and demonstrate the Catswain walk and talk.
What I thought was the Catswain walk and talk.
So, okay, let's begin the process of wrapping this up. Todd, I want to bring this back out to the 30,000-foot view and ask you a question this way. We often talk about the difference between a writer and a writer. Okay. There are writers and writers.
Sure.
Do you enjoy writing books, or do you enjoy having written books? Right, that sort of thing. Similarly, you mentioned how much of a sense of accomplishment you felt upon finishing The Wheel of Time, and you should. It's no small feat. At this point, a week on, do you feel like you enjoy having read The Wheel of Time, or do you feel like you enjoyed reading The Wheel of Time?
I don't know that I can answer that at this point in time. I think it's still a little too fresh. I enjoyed. There were a lot of moments that I did enjoy reading, listening, and having that fill my time. But there were. But when I think about all of the other things that are, and I guess for me the question then becomes, do I want to jump in immediately and do a reread, or am I feeling like that's a great accomplishment? I think I may come back to that later, but there are other things to do. It's like this. I have done some pretty epic bike rides in my day. Several 100-mile bike rides, a couple of long relays that I've done, some other kinds of things. There are a few of them that I'm like, yeah, if I never do that again, I'm fine. I'm glad I did it. I enjoyed it while I was doing it. I'm glad it's done. but for all of them, it takes time for me to figure out whether or not that's the case.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm in that space where I'm not sure which one I would say. I would be open to the question, 3 months from now, to be able to say a little differently. Do I feel a loss at not reading that and not interacting with those characters, or do I feel like I'm okay? I think in 90 days I'll know better.
I guess we'll see. Ryan, where are you at with this question of you've been through it a couple of times now. Do you feel any sort of press to get back to it? I mean, I know you're an insanely busy guy. I mean, just look at our podcast production output, in the last couple of years. Like, we know you're a busy guy.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, aside from that, do you feel like, oh gosh, I would love to get back into Randland, or not so much?
It's definitely so. Cosmere is my go back to frequently.
Yeah.
But the Wheel of Time is on that list of places that I like to go back to. I want to go back into, and I like spending time immersing myself in that world and in the knowledge of that world. I'm not that way with everything, but the things that I care about most, that I do genuinely love, that not just having been part of that, are the things that I commit to that time where I grab the stupid trivia knowledge and the deep lore and the everything. And that's generally, for me, that's Cosmere and a little bit of Wheel of Time, Star Wars definitely. And then
just wait till you read the Silmarillion cover to cover.
The day is coming.
So, yes, I definitely, I love the Wheel of Time, and I actually do very much would like to get back into there. I'm currently working on Dresden Files, so that's going to be a little bit. But
Are you really? Where are you at?
I just finished the second book yesterday.
Okay, let's say, all right, hold your thoughts, all right? You know what?
I also started
there are a
watching the
bunch of
series,
listeners who just went 6 to 12, and yeah, I am not prepared for these emails, man.
We're gonna have a conversation.
Okay.
I can't wait.
I'm gonna also throw something to those for those people who have now just made that big switch there. I also watched the one season adaptation, and there's a couple episodes left still, and thoroughly enjoyed that. So
I will tell you, I watched the Dresden Files, all of those, before I read the books, and I was like, I really enjoy those. They're different.
I will say that. So
honestly,
we'll take just a little dive here.
If I'm going to watch anything like that, I'm just going to go watch 5 seasons of Lost Girl and call it good.
There you go.
No, that was, I was watching through that, and that's actually what triggered me to go into it's time for me to read those books. It's time for me. I was watching that. I shouldn't say I was watching that really all that deep, because it was like so many things I ingest right now.
It's playing in the background.
It's playing over here while I'm doing something else. But I was watching it, really enjoyed that. I'm like, it's time to read the book. So I went and bought the first 2 off Audible and played Stormfront. And then we got to the Stormfront episode of Dresden.
Yes.
And I watched that and went, oh, I get why people don't like this.
Yeah.
I get this. I'm glad I watched this before I read it, because this would be annoying to me, because that's a real, you tried to do a 2-hour movie story in a 30-minute slot, and you didn't connect dots well.
No. I watched them first, then read the books. I have never gone back to this.
So apparently we're done with the Wheel of Time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
I have one. Can I share my one gripe about the end of the Wheel of Time?
Hang on, Todd, you don't have gripes. You are endlessly optimistic and sunny about all things at all times, and I will not take this from you.
I've become curmudgeon-y in my old age.
Yeah, I was literally sitting here thinking not 3 minutes ago, boy, Ryan and I have really filled out in the last 10 years. Todd hasn't aged a day.
Thank you. Except for my curmudgeon-iness.
Okay.
I really hated the conclusion of the Padanthane storyline.
Thank you.
That was about the most useless and pathetic. It's like, for me, it was like since we're still talking about bringing other things in, it's like the movie critic in Girl in the Water, the
Lady in the Water,
the Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Where he brings in a movie critic, and he kills the movie critic in the thing because movie critics were making fun of his movies, and so he inserted a character just so that he could kill him. I was like, well, that was the stupidest thing I think I've ever seen done. Very self-gratifying, blah blah blah, but it was useless. And I felt that.
It's why this show sucks so bad, because we make it about us, you know?
Okay. I like that. I can deal with that.
No, anyway, no, I get it. Yeah.
But yeah, we got to the, and it's like almost an afterthought to wrap up the Pot on Thane storyline. So many other ways it could have been done. I was like, seriously? That's what we're gonna do? Fine.
I echo that absolutely. I got to 14 and I was stoked to see how the Pot on Thane thing would end.
Yes.
I was genuinely excited because it had been such a visceral, emotional plot point for 14 books.
And then you get a couple of little hints of other things. Yeah, Pot on Thane actually was the one that killed Perrin's family. Yeah, Pot on Thane, all these, and I'm like, this has to be a hurdle to get. No, he's kind of just an idiot.
I do not remember how he goes out. So.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. We don't want to spoil it too hard for those who haven't read it yet. So.
You know what? And if people like it, great. Congratulations for you.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I mean this genuinely. I'm not trying to be flip here. I'm sure that there are people who could say, you don't understand the symbolism. You don't understand the structure and how he made all these things. The pieces fit together. And maybe. But in a story where over 14 books, everything, and I mean everything, has been spelled out for me.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for subtext anymore.
Nope.
Right? Like you better tell me.
There were pieces that I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. That's it? Give me something better than that. Yeah. That was kind of how I felt.
So on that note, I don't know. I guess final thoughts. Let's start with Ryan.
Can we bring in here?
Ryan, do you have any other pop culture references that you'd like to bring into this conversation? Because I'm not sure we've done enough yet.
Did we talk about Joker?
Yes.
Yeah. Joker Pas de Deux in theaters now. Whatever. I don't remember what it's actually. Yeah, whatever.
Pas de Deux.
Anyway. Yeah, clearly.
Dance instructor Ryan is a little tired at the end of the day.
Yeah, so don't look to me for anything. Don't look at me for anything there.
No, final thoughts. Wheel of Time, or even if you just want to say, hey, Todd, congrats, you finished. Okay, any final thoughts?
Hey, Todd, congrats. You finished.
It means so much coming from you after he kind of seated you with it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, now go take a nap. Todd. Final thoughts on the Wheel of Time.
I understand why it engenders so much passion in so many people. It's really wonderfully written. It's wonderfully executed, with the exception of the Pot on Thane thing. There's so much to love about it. I get it, and I'm glad that is something that I can say. Yeah, I think I can have a conversation with people about it intelligently and be able to appreciate that part of what they've gone through.
Yeah. I've got a couple. I'll try to go quick. I'm reminded every time, Todd, you say Pot on Thane.
Is it Pot on Fane?
Fane with an F.
F-A-I-N.
I'm reminded of...
I apologize.
Edmund Wilson's review of the Lord of the Rings back in the 50s. So he was this stuffy old literature critic, whatever, for the Sunday Times. And it had to be either deliberate or he just didn't read the books, because he would spell Gandalf with a PH at the end. It's like, if you read the books, this is in the 50s. You didn't have audio.
You didn't have Audible. Yeah.
So
maybe somebody sat in his office and read it for him.
There you go. Gandalf. Anyway, okay. So that's the other thing I was going to say, is that book 4 of the Wheel of Time, I'm wondering, I'm toying with this theory in my head. I'm curious if people have any thoughts on this. If you've made it to the end this far, go to Discord, come hang out, let me know what you think. Book 4 of the Wheel of Time may be the ultimate fantasy reader proving ground. So here's what I mean. You've gone through 3 books, and each of them has, their standard beginning, middle, end, but they all tie together as a trilogy, and you get to the end, and it's very clear if you know about the history of it that it was only ever planned to be a 3-book series, and so it kind of feels that way when you get to the end of book 3, that this really closed an arc here. Then you get to book 4, and I guess I shouldn't say a proving ground for fantasy generally. I guess I should say for this type of epic fantasy, multi-volume, huge epic fantasy. Because as I'm reading through it, this is where he really blows the world out. He introduces the Aiel. You get to know a little bit more about Trolloc culture and, the Fades and the Drakkar and he really blows it out geographically and culturally. The characters all disperse. And that's what I remembered from before this reread. But on this reread, I had forgotten just how long the story takes to get going. In book 4, you spend the first third of the book just kind of chilling at the Stone of Tyr. And everybody's hanging out, talking. Yeah, there's like a bubble of evil. Okay, we'll have a little action scene here out of nowhere. And then we'll talk some more about what we might do. Maybe we'll do that. Maybe we won't. Let's talk about it. Right. And
is it kind of like getting out of the Shire?
But it's a little bit like getting out of the Shire. But that's it. That's not to say, though, that it's not enjoyable.
Sure.
And that's kind of what I mean by the testing ground, where can you read the first half of The Shadow Rising and go like, oh yeah, no, I'm digging this. This is fun. I like it. Okay, I know these characters. I kind of understand the world. And now we're just going to sit and chat about what's going on for half a book. And then, and in these chats, we're going to put together, or we're going to disperse some puzzle pieces.
Yes.
And then at the end of the book, we'll put the puzzle pieces together. Some of them, others we'll save for later. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like book 4, and again, this may be recency bias that I brought up before, but as I'm in it now, I'm going, my gosh, this, like the Wheel of Time is like the ne plus ultra of all fantasy literature in a certain vein, at least. And book 4 is the one where it's like, if you get through this and enjoy it, you are in. This is your bag.
Yeah, I remember when I finished 3 and was starting 4. That was the phrase you left me with. If you as you read 4, because there was never a question if I was going to finish.
Sure.
But you said, as you read book 4, this will tell you whether or not you are a fan or you're just doing it to get through. And it was really, and I can see that.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of my thought, just where I'm at right now. I've been thinking about that as I've gone through the audiobooks this time. So anyway, I guess
fun.
You can now join in the long-loved call of this podcast. Taviren!
Taviren! And if anybody wants that t-shirt, just Venmo me $20 and I will send it your way. All right, I've got the t-shirt, baby.
I love it.
The other thing I was gonna say, Todd, now not only can you wear the t-shirt, you can go to JordanCon. You're the only one out of the main crew. You're the only one who has not yet been to JordanCon in Atlanta.
I think we need to arrange that for next year. When does it come up?
It's April.
I think we need to. Ooh,
Don't.
weekend.
No. We're not planning this now, Todd. We're being aspirational.
Oh, we're being aspirational.
JordanCon, so much fun.
JordanCon, I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
That's all I need to say.
Anyway, thanks everybody for listening. The Legendarium.com exists, I guess. Really, better to just go to Discord and come hang out, right? So, I don't know what our next episode is going to be, because why would I? We don't plan things. We're just coming off hiatus.
Going back to our strengths. Playing to our strengths again.
We'll see you all next time. Let's just talk. Let's give the people what they want. You know what they want? They want some content, Todd.
They want content. They want summaries. They want insults. They want the whole 9 yards.
Okay,
The
well,
whole bag of wax.
you
The
start-
whole.
You start the insults off, and
I don't think
Wheeler?
I don't think I've never been the insult guy.
Okay,
I've
well,
always been the nice guy. I thought that was my job.
Yeah, we
I
can
thought
just,
it said nice guy. Didn't it say nice guy?
oh, I forgot to
no.
get those cards.
You're
made.
old guy.
Oh, that's right.
You're
I'm
old
old
guy.
guy.
No.
You're nice guy.
No.
He's insult
No,
guy.
Ryan's the nice guy. Ryan's the
I'm
nice guy.
I'm not. Okay,
Ken
I'm
is
nice
summary guy.
Ken's punching.
Ken's punching guy.
Megan is prepared woman.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
Stephanie is
Should we change all
Occasionally
of them to
on.
person?
Stephanie is done with this woman.
Oh,
Whatever this is, she's done with it. And I'm
That's fair. That's
the
fair.
snarky piece of shit.
That's fair too. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Great,
would-
we can make plaques for everybody now. Nameplates.
Titles.
Nameplates around.
They will have initials underneath, and
Yeah.
if you understand what they are, those initials are right there. Yeah, I like that. I like that.